This week on Can the Marketing podcast, AI isn't coming, it's already here. Steph and I break down AI for marketers without the bullshit. Why humans still and will always come first, how to scale content without it sounding like slop, and what AI is doing to search. So whether you're already using AI daily or still on the fence, you have to check out this episode. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Ben. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's been a week, but when I got into coffee, so every Friday morning as a team in Auckland, we get together at Long Shot at Long Room for coffee. And we turned up and there was George FM there with a DJ and a table of Barocca, and I was like, this is cool. So it was definitely like dance party vibes, and
perfect.
It was good.
It's just what you need for Friday.
It was a good pick-me-up. Yeah, after a tough week, it was good. Yeah. Do you have much on for this weekend?
No, I'm going to be watching Hamilton the musical this evening, which I'm really excited. That will probably be for the fourth time with my daughter. So I'm actually really excited about that. It'd be cool.
So you've seen it live?
Yes, I've seen it in Melbourne. I went to Melbourne and saw it, and I've seen it here.
It's so much fun. It's such a good musical.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, definitely see if you can find the Disney version online. It has Jonathan Groff, who plays such an amazing king. He's so silly.
I started singing it today, and something about being in the room where it happens, and only 50% of the audience actually got it. So it's an acquired taste.
It is. But I feel like no matter how old you are, you can really get into it. It's got some good dancing, amazing costumes. Yeah, just brilliant.
Okie doke. So what have we got this week? Episode 4.
Episode 4, yeah. So we're talking about AI this week. So we've got all things AI, AI for marketing. But yeah, we've got a few things happening in the news as well this week. We've got social media bans happening.
Yes. So let's break it down. Do you want to take us through, I guess, kind of what's been happening in the world of marketing and agency land?
Yeah. So for the social media bans, I think a lot of countries are looking at the harm that social media has, especially on young people. So I feel like the EU, not so much the US, but Australia and potentially New Zealand in the future will look at restricting social media. So the Australian federal government is also deciding whether they include YouTube in that ban. So that's for all people under 16 starting in December. So it could have a real impact.
That's huge, right? Because I think originally, so my understanding of this is that YouTube was always fine. They weren't worried about, it was always going to be excluded because they don't consider themselves to be a social media platform, right? They consider themselves to be broadcast. Mm-hmm. And then my understanding is that something has changed as that bill has progressed through, and now they are considering YouTube to also have the ban. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. And that has a big impact. I mean, a lot of kids watch YouTube because that's how they get their content.
Yeah. So I don't think it's going to impact YouTube Kids, for example. Like, I think if you've got a kids account, that's fine. You'd still be able to do that. I'm really interested in this because my children are 16 and nearly 14. And we haven't had this conversation, but I'll be really interested to hear what their thoughts on this are. I imagine there'll be a big eye roll, and it will, so what, we'll just do what we want anyway. But, I've heard some commentary on this move, and the best analogy I've heard is that, like, we all know that we need to wear seatbelts in a car, and but having a legal implication for not wearing a seatbelt in a car just adds that whole, that extra element of, well, I better do it or I'm going to get in trouble. And so I think, as the parent of teenage children, I know that my kids are still going to try and get around bans. But if there is, it gives me a little bit of agency as a parent, for example, to say, yeah, but it's illegal. So it just gives you that extra kind of string to your bow. So I'm all for it. How it actually rolls out remains to be seen.
And I think that's the key issue here, is because in some way, people over the age of 16 are going to need to provide some kind of government ID. So even though this is for young people, it has impacts across everyone, because essentially as an adult, you're going to have to prove that you are over 16. So that means every social media account is going to need some way to verify, and it's huge. Yeah. And the fines on the platforms are large as well, so up to $50 million. So it's not like a small fine. Like these are material fines that it will be issued.
When does it go live? When does it happen?
They're talking about December this year for Australia.
Yeah, well, and it's a world first, right? Like that's the really exciting thing about it. I think the world is looking to Australia to see how this impacts and how they tackle it. I applaud it. I think it's a great move.
100%.
It's been interesting. We've only been doing this for 4 weeks, but every week there seems to be something hugely controversial happening in market. And I think the big one in the last 7 days has been the Sydney Sweeney Jeans versus Jeans American Eagle ad. Now, I've seen a lot of hot takes on this. I don't know. I like to sit on the fence is just generally my position on something hugely controversial. Do you have any thoughts on it?
It is fairly nuanced. I mean, it is, some people are saying they like it. Some people say that, the people getting upset with it are overreacting. I don't think it's a particularly good or bad ad, but it's getting a lot of attention. And I think similar to what happened with
Astronomer and Coldplay.
Yeah, the whole, it's press. The brand is getting attention. American Eagle jeans are everywhere. So, maybe not for the right reasons or good reasons, but, it's getting the brand into the market.
Yeah, and I think, look, if you're going to take a real purist view and go, if your ultimate goal was to reignite a conversation about your brand and to be more relevant, and because, when was the last time, and I know we don't live in America, but when was the last time you'd considered American Eagle? Like, I remember shopping in the States in the early 2000s, and that brand was everywhere, but I feel like it had potentially lost relevancy. It has sparked conversation, and rightly or wrongly, American Eagle is now a brand that is, has again shot around globally. So, I think the tactics probably weren't right. I'd say this is probably a misstep. And how they came out of it will be really interesting. It'll be interesting to see where do they go to from here, and does this harm or help their brand medium term?
Mm-hmm. And long term.
So we've chosen to talk about AI today, which, and I think there's some trepidation around this. AI is a huge topic, and there's lots of different angles we could take on this, but I think it's really worth speaking at it from a marketing perspective. And this is just, there's a couple of things I've seen interestingly, or not interesting, depending on how you want to look at it. I've just come off the back of doing a course with the Marketing Association, and you can't turn around these days in any event without hearing the words AI. And I know that it's been a real weak spot for me in terms of upskilling and learning. And so I happened to have this thought on the 30th of July, and I was like, I know. What's going to work really well? I'm just going to call it AI August. And so I've decided to replace all my podcast listening with as many AI podcasts as I possibly can. And so far, I'm about, what are we now, the 8th of August, where I'm a week in. I'm probably about 5 episodes down. And it already, I think I'm becoming more comfortable with the vernacular and the language and a few other things. So that's my own personal journey.
Yeah, I would agree. AI is everywhere. I feel like it's so baked in now that it is in every conference, it's in every podcast. And it's part of work, whether we're ready or not. And how it's impacting marketers is multifaceted. And I think today we wanted to talk about a couple of key AI topics that are impacting marketers. A couple of things, how it's creating content, how it's changing content creation, and how it's changing search and how people discover products and brands and services.
So, I think probably the first thing to start with is AI isn't coming, it's already here, right? So there is no avoiding AI, and I think it's ubiquitous, and it's been around actually for a very long time. But there's definitely, what I see is a little bit of confusion. And the things that I hear very frequently are, is AI going to replace my job? Is, what should I do? Or where do I even start? What should I be doing? And I've been working with a business owner lately, And she works in the FMCG space, and she's really upskilled herself in AI, and she runs kind of an AI. It's not for dummies. That's the wrong way to describe it. It's AI specifically targeted towards people who work in FMCG, and it's like anything. It's like learning Excel. If you're not actually physically doing it and applying, the systems and the tools, you forget it. And certainly that's how I would find, a Microsoft Excel course. If I don't go and do all the formulas, it goes in one ear and out the other. So, and she's got a really great way of framing up how she's been using AI, and she calls it her AI intern. So it's the intern you never hired, fast, cheap, and occasionally wildly inaccurate. And so I thought that was a really nice way of thinking about it as your kind of assistant. I don't know, what do you think about that?
I think it's good. And I think definitely incorporating it into the way that you work, whether that's in a key part of your business, or if you're not too sure, using it just like a sidekick or, some kind of support or junior employee.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm going to ask you a question, Ben. What is the most useless or brilliant thing that AI has done for you this week?
I mean, I use it every day. I mean, I use it to help break down emails, help break down documents, help summarize things. Probably the most useful thing is, summarizing
Yep.
large, complex emails, documents, and really getting to the so what in the document.
Amazing. So a bit of a time saver for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Do you know, and I don't know if you knew I was going to ask this question, what was the last thing you prompted into your chat GPT?
What was the last thing I prompted? I can bring it up.
You probably can bring it up.
Yeah, the last thing I did was help me refine the notes for this podcast. So
awesome.
The way that I work is, you've seen my spreadsheet, but I love a spreadsheet. So I've got a whole plan of the podcast and the spreadsheet, the topics we're going to be talking about and some of the notes. And I'll just share that into ChatGPT and ask it for ideas and tips and find mistakes and things like that.
The last thing that I used ChatGPT for this week, actually the most useless thing, it wasn't useless, it just wasn't particularly helpful. And I think that, it's been said before, you're only as good as the prompt that you put in. So I happened to be interviewing someone this week for a marketing manager role, and I really wanted to build out some case study. I had the idea that I really wanted this person to put forward a case study. So I put the position description, the company details, which I've got a custom GPT about this particular company, so it already kind of knew a little bit about the business itself. And I said, just write me a couple of case study options based on what you know about the business and the position description that we're hiring for. And it was actually a pretty good starting point. I would definitely refine it, but it was a really good starting point to go, great, here are three main areas I could probably set up a case study on. So that's how I used it.
Brilliant. There was something that was shared, a new feature in ChatGPT specifically, and I know some of the AI platforms are incorporating these, but they're called projects, and it is a way to group information and documents so that you can ask questions and prompt based on a project or a theme. So that's been really helpful. That is essentially grouping chats together plus documents, so you can put all these things together and then start asking prompts, and it will give you information back based on what you've given the AI.
Yeah, having the projects feature is super helpful. I agree.
So let's talk about content creation. So I think this is one of the key ways that AI is really disrupting marketing, or is in the process of disrupting marketing. And I think this is where a lot of people are getting worried about job elimination.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of tools for creating copy, and I think the one that most people are familiar with is creating words within ChatGPT, and creating copy for ads and for social media. And then there's also creating the video and photography and graphics. And I think this is where potentially there's still nuance that humans can add. And I think this is where, it's quite obvious where someone sometimes has used ChatGPT and there's a new term being used for people that use it all the time, and they're being called sloppers.
I have not heard this term.
So the reason behind the word sloppers is that the idea is the internet is turning into slop. It's just turning into regurgitated, reformed words, and where you've got people just using it all the time, that's where the word sloppers comes from. So we don't want to be sloppers.
I've definitely seen, and I'm going to call it out, I've seen there's a certain way that LinkedIn posts are being written where it is so blatantly obvious that it has been written by AI. And there are times when I think to myself, I really want to call that out, but I don't. And I kind of think I get that you want to sound professional, and that's fine. But every time I hear from somebody who's doing really, really well at whatever the thing is that they're doing, whether that is content creation or whether that is just, their own personal brand or actually even doing their own job, where it works really well is where they're just genuinely authentic and it sounds like them. And if you sound like yourself, then people are going to resonate with that. And I think there's a case for developing a specific tone of voice. So if you and I both work with companies and with brands, and they have a specific tone of voice. And so one of the ways I think that AI tools can really supercharge output, for example, from an efficiency perspective, is tools like Jasper or Claude or even ChatGPT, where you can put in all of the inputs that you're using. So imagine if you come back to this idea of an intern and it's your intern's first day, and what do? You give them the brand guidelines and you give them all of the, the copy that you've written, maybe the company annual report and all of those things. And you train the intern and go, right, this is how we like to speak. We're bold, we're irreverent, we're funny, or whatever the thing may be. And if you can build a persona and around that, then ChatGPT or whatever the program is that you're using can learn that and can then help to build out your tone of voice. So I think there's an ability to be able to be more efficient in that space, but you've got to spend the time up front putting the information in.
And I think with any kind of copy or image or video, review it before you post it. Like if you are going to use an AI to draft it, like at least review it, make sure that if you're in New Zealand that you don't have American spelling and, just the things that you would do normally. If you think about it like a member of the team, you're not just going to copy paste what they put and publish it straight away. So have a good read through, change it, definitely use it to get efficiencies and to make the task a bit easier or get the first draft. But definitely give it your own tone, your own spice.
And again, if you're really thinking about, and I really do like this idea of your intern, if you're thinking about intern, you would check the intern's work, right? You wouldn't just go, okay, thank you very much, grad student, you've come in and wonderful. You've written a blog about the business, just go and publish it. So I think if you apply that logic and you apply those rules, with an AI tool, then I think that's at least a really good start.
Mm-hmm. But I think we're all guilty of that copy paste, and then you look at the post afterwards and you're like, oh, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
That could have been better.
I was privy enough to see some research on this last week, and I thought it was really worth kind of highlighting because there's this theory that you're cheating if you're using AI. And so there's this, I still think, particularly in New Zealand, there's an element of, we just won't say that we've used it, or a little bit like, oh, we use ChatGPT, and people are giving ChatGPT nicknames to kind of make it sound a little bit less obvious that it's AI. Anyway, all of that being said, there was to anchor this back in research and results, there was Procter Gamble, who are arguably one of the biggest FMCG businesses in the world, did a research project last year. And I'll just read out what they did. So they collaborated with researchers from Harvard Business and the Wharton School, and they did a research around, they basically took a control group and to test out ChatGPT-4 in real-world marketing and product innovation workflows. So it was called the Cybernetic Teammate, an experiment on generative AI reshaping teamwork and expertise. So there were 776 people in the business who did this. And what they did is they randomly assigned people to either work individually or in teams of 2 with or without AI assistance. So it was a real world problem facing the business. And they looked at efficiency and output as a result for the people who were given, effectively the same problem and whether they used AI or not. And it was real life experimentation. So really interestingly, the results went like this. Individuals using AI performed as well as full teams without AI assistance. AI-enabled individuals completed tasks 16% faster, and then team-based saw a 12% reduction in time to complete the task. So super fun, basically it made you get to the answer quicker. And then the quality of the output. So the teams using AI were 3 times more likely to produce breakthrough top decile ideas. So if a company like Procter Gamble is getting these results, and in actual fact, what they did then is they've now implemented this in their business. So what are the outputs? Using AI allowed their marketing teams to generate, test, and optimize advertising creative far faster and at lower cost to reach a higher output of quality. And then they started to introduce AI studios within the business. So I think, we can sit here and go, well, we think it's better and, we'd recommend it. But I think, there's some actual studies that are proving that it will improve output and efficiency.
100%. And I think the way to think about AI is it is similar to the move from pencil to typewriter, from typewriter to word processor, similar to how Adobe has changed the way that we produce graphics. This is the next evolution. And the people that embrace this technology and use it and understand how it can make them more efficient and produce higher quality outputs, those people will benefit. For sure.
100%. And I think the other thing I feel really obliged to point out, it's all very well to say, yep, go ahead and use AI. And I think you and I are probably in quite a different position in that we are working on our own businesses and we can set up our own kind of IT stack and our security. If you're working in a larger organization, what I would say is really become familiar with what the IT policies of your business are, and probably can't stress enough the importance of making sure that you 100% are not sharing customer information. So that's really important to the work that I do, because I work with multiple different clients, that I am none of the stuff that I put in is going anywhere else and sharing externally. And then there's obviously issues around things like legal and copyright and ownership of assets, and always check the accuracy of your outputs is probably a couple of things that I would call out there.
Agreed. And making sure that you've got good IT policies and that your team understands and follows those policies as well, especially when it comes to data. So we have at Human Digital a technology policy, and it applies to all platforms and tools, including AI. And the focus is really clear: to protect data, to maintain professional standards, and to ensure quality. So it really doesn't matter what platform we're using, AI or not, those principles remain.
And look, I think I don't mind being really transparent about how we're obviously new to the podcasting game. And I think one of the things, so recording this is probably the easiest part of the whole process. The editing is an entirely different piece of work. But what's really great and what I've discovered is AI is helping us with our editing, with our transcripts, with the way that we are approaching this process. It's 100% sped things up for us in terms of, I am absolutely not an expert in video editing. So we're using it weekly for our podcast.
Definitely. And I think the other key benefit of AI. It does speed things up, but there is a risk that it will turn things into slop. And I think the other key lesson that we've learned is don't start or finish with AI. Always start with your human strategy. Like think about, start with that human thinking, grounded in your own thought and your own strategy, and then look at the output and again, tweak it, make it your own, put it into your own voice and your own brand.
If you're putting average inputs out, you're going to get, so it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't know, I mean, another example I've had recently is a CEO that I was working with put together, so he uses AI really frequently, and there was a presentation that I needed to do to the board, and he had done a couple of prompts in ChatGPT, or I think it was Gemini actually, and had said, right, build me out a presentation for the board around marketing. Now, and he sent it to me and said, this is the presentation. And it wasn't bad, but he's not a marketer. And I looked at it and I said, no, there's some things in here that I would like, we've missed a few things that are really important. So that's where that level of expertise comes over it and go, if you're not a subject matter expert, you would read that and go, oh, that's fine. That's absolutely okay. But the value add is when you critically assess it.
So as well as changing the way that content is created, it's changing the way that people discover things. So it's changing search, but it's also changing the way that people find out information about brands and products. But I guess most importantly, it's helping them solve problems. And I think, it's part of the human condition. We have problems, we want to solve them. And some of those problems can be solved by products and services. And that's where marketing comes into play. But it is changing the way that people search. And Google used to be that one-stop shop where you could go to and get the answer that was right. And I think search has really evolved, and people have been gamifying search, and then Google has monetized search. So you've got search engine marketing, and very quickly now we're moving into AI search. And that is another way that AI is changing marketing. What are you seeing in the way that people discover?
It's really interesting, right? So I don't profess to be a tech expert, but I genuinely look at how it's changed my search, and I've also obviously listened to a few talks about this specifically. We're all we're inherently lazy in that we're all really, really busy and we're looking for shortcuts. Now, there are many, many times that I will go and search for something, and I see the AI summary, and I'm like, great, job done. Like, you've given me a really quick overview. A fun game I like to play after a night drinking is I will go into my phone the next day and look at the random things that I have looked up, and there's some really interesting stuff that comes out. But that being said, it's I'm stopping there. The answer in my mind is at the top of the page. So one of the things I learned recently, and again, let's just preface this by saying I'm by no means a search expert. You've probably got more expertise in this space, but what AI is looking for now, so that the future of brands, I suppose, one of the evolutions is that if you're building out your website, you talked about hacking the system, and what we used to do is stuff our websites full of keywords so that we would show up in search. Actually, what AI is looking for now is some really deep content, so really built out content, not just shallow keywords for the sake of, you can't stuff your website full of keywords effectively. You need to go deep on a topic. And if you're a subject matter expert in something, you are more likely to hit the top of, it'll be referenced in AI. Is that would you say that that's fairly accurate?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, essentially what these tools are trying to do is match a question or a problem with an answer, and they're trying to do that in the most efficient way. And I think what marketers, and I use marketers very general, is that they're trying to game the system. They're trying to be like, let's load it, as you say, with keywords so that it shows up. But essentially what the AIs are doing is they are looking and searching in a smarter way. But some of the same principles for SEO still apply to AI search, which is the credible pieces of information will be referenced across the internet and across different sources. So if you are the expert, what typically happens is people will quote you. And so that concept is called backlinking in SEO. But a similar thing happens in AI search, is that the more that your information is referenced, the more likely it is to be credible, and therefore the AIs will pick it up. So ensuring that if you are create great content, like that deep content that you're talking about, that credible, that well-researched content, and then share that with people, and hopefully they see the quality and then they reference it and they quote you and they talk about it when they talk about that same topic or problem or solution.
Yeah. I've heard statements where we won't need websites in the future. This is like the idea of a website is potentially irrelevant. And, it's so hard to wrap. We're in this fast period of change. It's hard to wrap my head around it, like I say. But I definitely think it's having an impact. I did see a presentation from Caroline Ransford, who is the country manager of Google, and they seem incredibly optimistic about what's happening in their space. So I imagine that they've got plans to combat this idea of their Google AdWords and what's kind of happening in market now. So they certainly don't seem that concerned about it, and I'm sure they've got a business model to protect them.
Yeah, and I mean, Google is pushing quickly with Gemini into search, and if you search now, it's going to give you a Gemini result at the top. So, Google is leaning in for sure, and they've got a lot invested. Their ad revenue, especially in search, is significant for them. So, they are optimistic, but there is a credible threat with the other AI models.
I think it would be really interesting, actually, because I don't think this problem is going to go away. I think it's going to continue. And I think it would be really interesting to speak to somebody working in this space too, to see how it's evolving at some stage. It'd be really great to hear what the advice is for businesses. And I think that's whether they're small or large. What should they be thinking about and preparing for future? And the other thing too, and this isn't just an AI issue, is search now is not just typing something into a computer. It is a voice note. It is an image search. Like, we are searching in so many different mediums.
We're also asking our assistants, our voice assistants, whether that be Siri or Google, we're asking questions using voice. And I've seen some statistics that future generations won't use their fingers to type. They will be saying commands essentially to their technology, and it's already happening.
I mean, it's crazy, right? So we've lost the ability to write, and we've learned how to type, and we might even just lose the ability to type shortly, and we'll just be speaking. I mean, maybe that feels like a full circle moment, Ben.
It does, and at the end of the day, this is all about communication and marketing. If we boil it down, is communication of ideas. Yes, there is that commercial element. When you're talking about websites may not exist. Yes, the www website may not exist. Where there's already platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram that are producing images, videos, and content that mean that you don't have to go to a website to consume it. And they are actively trying to keep you on their platform as well. All of those social media tools are trying to keep you in their ecosystem, that you don't have to leave. The criticism, I think, of these large language models is that they too are trying to keep you in their system. And one of the big criticisms are, especially for news, is that the people that are creating the content, the journalists or the writers or the producers, they're not getting compensated for that. So these large language models are sucking up the internet, providing the answer. The user does not leave that platform, and the content creator doesn't get compensated. And I think that's, probably the key issue. But again, it's not a new issue. Google and Facebook have been criticized already for not giving revenue back to the content creator and killing potentially or making it not viable to have a newspaper or a news website, and I think this is just compounding that problem.
Building on that idea of websites, potentially changing in the way that they are serving, let's talk about AI agents. And I think this is more and more coming up. And in fact, I was in a meeting yesterday with talking about building a startup and a website. And I was like, okay, so will this be, if the world of AI agents happens and you and I don't do our shopping anymore, we have an agent on our behalf to do things for us. In this particular instance, I was like, well, are we preparing for that? And the answer to that was yes. So, maybe we should explain very quickly the concept of an AI agent. Yeah.
So essentially an AI agent is a computer program that does things for you. So it could write an article, it could create a website for you, it could do your shopping like you were talking about. It could make a restaurant reservation. The concept of the agent is, that supporter, that digital helper that can go around and do things for you. And it was interesting at Digital Day Out, I think it was, where Google was saying that these agents, you could give them your credit card and they would shop for you. And the implications for marketing, in the future, we may not even be marketing to humans. We may need to market to these agents because it's these agents that are going to be buying your tomato sauce and your favorite brand of pizza. So, and what do these agents want to know in the form of marketing so that they can make decisions as well?
And how do you influence an agent, right? Like, how on earth do you change? And I think the premise is here that this particular agent has learned everything that they need to know about Steph, and they've learned everything they need to know about Ben, and they really understand your needs and wants, and they'll go out and into the world and make that happen. I'm gonna, one of the things that I'm gonna challenge on that is, my preferences now are not the same as they were in my 20s or even in my 30s, so I'm interested to know, how does that evolve and change over time? I'm sure there'll be a solution, but it's not just a set and forget situation. And so my understanding is that ChatGPT 5 is due to come out on the 19th of August, and that there is an agent element of that. And I think it's very much if you're an early adopter, proceed with caution moment with giving out any of your personal details and your credit card details, because I wouldn't be that comfortable with where that was going to end up.
So I'm just really curious what we're going to be doing as humans. So if it takes our job and it's doing all of our shopping, what are we supposed to be doing as humans? Just sitting there consuming AI slop? What's the future looking like, Steph?
I've got a few. Again, because I've gone deep on this, so there's a couple of theories. What if we don't have to be as busy? Do we have to work 5? If we can be efficient in what we're doing, maybe that frees up some more time. Now, cynically, I'm like, everyone said that when we had phones, we would have so much more time. That obviously hasn't borne to be true. So, look, it's a great question. I really don't know how many people who have the answer to that.
It's interesting, and it's all changing very quickly.
So a couple of things. One of the other things I heard recently was this concept, if we bring this back to what does this mean for marketing? So there's a little bit of the bit where you can become more efficient, you can improve your output, you can probably improve the quality of your output to some extent, but there's probably a world in which, and I thought this was a really interesting idea, if you're sitting in a marketing, or you're sitting in a business and a marketing team, there's potentially a world in which one of your team members is now an AI agent. And so that person is possibly raising your purchase orders, doing some of the, ordering samples, some of the more automated tasks that you potentially would give to your intern or to your grad or to your junior. I think there's a real, I can foresee that happening in the short term. And the other thing I probably want to also say is that people, not incorrectly, would have the freak out a little bit at the idea of AI taking their job. So my recommendation would be embrace it as much as you can. And how, like, in terms of your, like, when you're working in that B2B space, do you think that your clients are really forward thinking in that area?
Every business is slightly different, and they have different risk appetite. They have different technology policy, but pretty much all the clients we work with are using or at least testing AI in some space. And the thing is, even if you are not ready for it, AI is being baked into pretty much every technology platform, whether you like it or not.
As marketers, one of the main things that we do is to understand our customer and understand our customer data. And if you can understand where your data is coming from, you can then have an opportunity to put AI over the top of that, to draw out insights, to test and learn, to do things more cleverly. Now, in bigger organizations, that's possibly a much longer process. But I would say if you're in a smaller organization, there's a real opportunity, because you can be a bit more nimble, to think about, right, we know this about our customers. What programs can we put over the top of that to help really drill in, maybe build out some customer personas? We can test our creative more efficiently. And I think, look, I'm going to challenge myself to do that. I think that side of it's super exciting.
We want to get everyone's questions. I think so this show is developing. This is our 4th episode. We are planning future episodes, but we do want questions. So we want your AI questions. So if you have a question about AI or anything marketing, but specifically AI, please get in touch with us. We're on LinkedIn. We are on Instagram, or you can shoot us a message. So do reach out to us. And we are also starting to think about bringing guests onto the podcast as well. So if you're a marketer and you're interested in sharing your story or coming on to talk about a topic, get in touch with us as well. We would love to have you on the show and to chat with you about marketing.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I think there's so many great marketers in New Zealand. So honestly, if you're interested, if you're as passionate about marketing and creativity as Ben and I are, then absolutely hit us up and we'd love to add you to the list. That'd be great.